Hey everyone, and welcome to WDIM Plus, where today I'm going to be exploring the movie Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk, and explaining the ending as well as some of the other themes and references in the movie. Most people didn't know much about this film before the action-packed first trailer was released, and since then the film has started to gain quite a following. The film was written by Derek Kolstad, who is known as being the writer of the John Wick action films, and star Bob Odenkirk also acted as one of the film's many producers. You can definitely feel the connections to the John Wick franchise in this film from not only the writer, but also with the contributions of producer David Leitch, who produced the first John Wick film as well as the movie Deadpool 2, among others. Like Wick, Odenkirk's character, Hutch Manziel, is a seemingly retired but well-trained assassin trying to move on with his life, who gets pulled back into his old life through a series of escalating events. But where Nobody really differs from John Wick is how both characters are perceived at first glance, with Keanu Reeves' character appearing as a man in black type force of nature known as a boogeyman, as opposed to Bob Odenkirk's literally masquerading as a nobody who you would never think would be capable of what we see this character can do in the film. The movie does a good job in pacing the story along without much exposition as to the character's background or relationships. And while this leaves open these loose ends to be connected in sequels, it also leaves a lot of questions unanswered as well. Here, I will break down the major parts of the movie as well as the ending and what I thought of the overall story. If you do like this video, you can do a lot to help support a nobody like me and hit that like button. This is a new channel that I created for my main channel, What Did I Miss?, which covers more of the sci-fi genre, and I've put a link in the description of that if you want to check it out. Nobody follows Odenkirk's Hutch Manziel and does a great job from the first act of pacing the film quickly so that the audience is aware of the story, but isn't dwelling on the minutiae of the character's life. We see a man going through an ordinary life in an ordinary way until this is disturbed by two burglars. While his son is able to tackle one of the intruders, Hutch is unable to bring himself to attack the other. The audience as well as the family are made to believe that this is because Hutch is afraid, but we learn later that this was because of Hutch's training. He was able to see that the gun the burglars were using was not loaded. Hutch is then humiliated by everyone from the police to his own family because of this decision, but it is made clear that he did this out of an act of mercy, not fear. And mercy is a trait that this character displays multiple times throughout the movie. After learning that his daughter's kitty cat bracelet is missing, Hutch decides to go after the burglars using the only clue he has, which is a tattoo, and he searches various tattoo parlors for information. Finally, at one, before a fight breaks out, a veteran recognizes a tattoo on Hutch's wrist and leaves the room quickly after thanking him for his service. This is our first hint as to what his character is capable of, and the tattoo may be a hint. The tattoo is of two playing cards, a 7 and a 2 offsuit, and in a poker game like Texas Hold'em, this is the worst starting hand you can have. Military tattoos are well known, and specifically in Russian culture, tattoos have been shown to be used to tell stories about the individual. Hutch seems to have the abilities and the connections of a member of a special operations force, and the tattoo probably means that he was sent in when it looked like there was no other way to win. This hand is also given the nickname of the Hammer in poker, and you can see how that name could be associated with the abilities of this character. As he doesn't even need military grade weapons to achieve his goals, he almost has a Kevin McAllister talent of using the things he has available against his attackers. Or the fact that in poker, you never want to see these cards, which also relates to something that Odenkirk says about his character later in the film, could have something to do with their meaning. But throughout the film, we see that this is a man with a moral compass, as when he does finally catch up with the individuals who robbed him, he leaves them be after seeing they have a sick child. Films will often give seemingly heartless characters sick children to humanize them, and in a way, this movie uses this scene to humanize Hutch even more. Within his mundane life, we see that Hutch uses the bus to get around everywhere, which is another way of showing us how average this man is, and this also works as a measure of foreshadowing for an intensely brutal fight scene on a city bus. After a Hummer full of drunk idiots crash into a barrier and stumble onto the bus, an event that shows these D-bags have no value of life and therefore can be made into human punching bags, but honestly I think the Hummer alone did that. Hutch takes him out methodically and efficiently, even returning to the inside of the scene after being thrown out of a window. Again though, we see the character does have a heart as he saves the life of one of these men, at least briefly. This man happens to be the brother of a Russian mob boss who is also brutal and thinks that he is a version of Frank Sinatra. I think that the theme of duality in one's life comes up a lot in this movie, and the connections to Frank Sinatra and the Julian character are put there to make this more obvious. As with Frank Sinatra, who of course was a world-renowned star of Hollywood, but it is also rumored that he had ties to organized crime and enjoyed walking the line between both lives. In this movie, both main characters are walking the line of life they see as being what they want, as well as who they really are, as Julian plays the part of being a club owner and singer, but in reality is a ruthless crime lord. Much like Hutch sees a normal family life as what he believes is perfect, but cannot keep himself on that path. We even see that Hutch let a man go and was envious of him for finding a family a year after letting him live, which is an event that prompts him to leave his career as an auditor and attempt to live a normal life. Julian sends his best guys after Hutch at his house, and it is this decision that prompts Hutch to destroy Julian's wealth as well, since to Hutch this is a scorched earth type of maneuver that you can only do when you have no intentions of coming back from it. Again, throughout the movie, Hutch is able to match Julian play for play, almost as if they are playing a game of cards against each other. When Hutch realizes he cannot return to his old life as it was, he burns it down literally by destroying his house and buying his place of work. It was shown earlier in the film that Hutch wanted to buy the place to have something that was his own. He makes it his own by setting up deadly traps all over it. Again, this workshop is like a metaphor for what Hutch is, as from the outside looking in, you would not think it was as dangerous as what lurks inside. After getting help from his father, played by Christopher Lloyd, as well as his half-brother Harry, played by RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan, they are able to bring the ruckus and kill Julian. I really enjoyed Christopher Lloyd's scenes in this film, and he along with RZA gave the movie a Deadpool-style nonsensical feel that I really appreciated and gave the film some 90s action film style levity as well. The only thing that Hutch saves from Julian's fortune is a painting, and that is the Bedroom in Arles by Van Gogh. It is unknown why he shows an affinity for this work, although it was shown in the Art Institute of Chicago, so it may be a callback to that since Bob Odenkirk seems to find a way to reference his hometown in almost every character he portrays. Or the fact that this version is one of 3 versions of the same painting might be a metaphor for the development of his character. Van Gogh created 3 versions of his childhood bedroom from memory, making slight changes each time, so perhaps the fact that the painting shown in this movie is the second version of the work shows that Hutch is working on the second version of his life now before he can move on to the next one. In the end, we see Hutch get arrested for the violence he caused, but is let go after it is inferred that the government had arranged for his release. We see him and his family starting a new life, but it looks like he has now gone back to his old job, which his family is now aware of. Also in the mid-credit scene, we see that his father and half-brother are traveling in an RV full of guns to what looks like the Pacific Coast, showing that all the characters have now come full circle and are embracing their old lives and working to integrate it into a new one. This wraps up the theme of the movie quite nicely, as now it seems that whoever has survived the events are moving forward, being honest with themselves about who they are, and honest with the ones in their lives as well. Nothing about this movie is really new, but I think that the action sequences and the characters are engaging enough that you are still very interested because the stakes are always being raised with every event in the movie. I kept thinking of the John McClane character in the Die Hard series, and how in each movie the scope of the villains and the circumstances were always increased, and I felt like Hutch went through the same arc just in this movie. Think about it. In the beginning of the film, he is shown to be unable to fight off 2 inept burglars, and by the end of the movie, he is massacring an entire squad of Russian mobsters using his own makeshift traps. But the movie doesn't take itself seriously long enough for the audience to really feel this absurd escalation, and instead you just feel like you're along for a wild ride. I very much enjoyed the film. I was really impressed by the work that Bob Odenkirk put in to become this character. It is reported that the actor took 2 years of fight training to prepare for this role, and it really shows, as he is very believable in a role that is a huge divergence from anything he has done before, including his well-known role in Breaking Bad. I just finished rewatching the first season of Fargo, another production he was involved with, and it is really impressive to know that the man who, among other things, came from Berwyn, Illinois and wrote for Saturday Night Live, and is responsible for the creation of the popular Chris Farley character Matt Foley, can now play all these different types of roles. Well, that was everything I noticed, but if you saw anything, let me know in the comments. Thank you for clicking on this video. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?